All right, Friday edition of PFT Live, flying solo, but that means loading up the program with some really great guests. Paul Allen is the exception. Tony Dungy is not, and as Paul Allen mentioned, speaking at an event tomorrow in Minneapolis, he'll be joined by Coach Dungy. Coach Dungy follows him today. Coach Dungy follows him tomorrow. Coach Dungy joins us now. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Hey, Mike, long time no talk, no see. Great to be with you.
So tell me a little bit more about the event that's going to take you back to Minneapolis, your old stomping grounds from your time, both with the Golden Gophers and with the Vikings from 92 through 95.
Yes, it's actually an annual event that we've done for the last 10 years. It started out as a fundraiser for the chaplain of the Vikings, Tom Lamphere, but we've now kind of morphed it into a fundraiser on Friday night, dinner, and then an outreach on Saturday. We pick a notable sports figure and talk about why they've been uncommon. We give them the Uncommon Award and then have an outreach. So we've had some really neat people. Ben Roethlisberger is our award winner this year, ending up a career that's very uncommon in this day and age, playing his whole career for the same team.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, when you think about it, especially at the quarterback position, the way it's gone the past 10 or 15 years, it's becoming almost a presumption that a great quarterback is going to put that final punctuation mark on his career with some other team, or maybe with two other teams as it's currently going. Let me start there, though. I'm going to go out of order from what I had planned to do, because one thing that struck me about Ben Roethlisberger's final game in Pittsburgh, it was also the last time Baker Mayfield wore a Browns uniform, and he got to watch what happened and how Ben Roethlisberger was received. And I remember thinking, Baker realizes right now that's never going to happen for him in Cleveland. Little did we know at the time that it was going to fall apart the way that it did. I know your son Justin has been a huge Baker Mayfield fan from day one. What advice would you have for Baker Mayfield as he embarks on this uncertainty as to what's going to happen next for his career? All we know at this point is it's not going to happen in Cleveland.
I would tell Baker the same thing that Chuck Noll, my first boss in Pittsburgh, told me when I first got into coaching in 1981. He said, you're going to have a lot of decisions, career decisions you can make. Don't make your decisions based on money or job description. Make your decision based on who you're going to work with, who you're going to work around, and what you're going to learn. And I think that's what Baker needs to do. Go someplace where you're going to be with some good people, a good group. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry if you're going to be a starter or not. All of that will take care of itself. Get in a good place for you where you can learn and be one of the forces that helps that team grow.
That's an excellent point. And he seems to be willing to kind of go along with however it plays out. There's only so much he can control at this point. But excellent advice, especially because one thing we learn and one thing we're reminded of every year at this time, you go back and look at the quarterbacks who were drafted in round one, there are a lot of guys that fail. And it's not necessarily because of them that they fail. It's because of where they land, what they have around them, what their coaching situation is. No one would succeed in that setting. So it's not the player who fails, it's the overall circumstance that fails.
Yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger is a great example of that. Okay, he comes out in the same year as Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers, and he's the third guy picked. But he goes to a stable situation with a good team around him, wins a couple of Super Bowls, plays there 15 years, and has a tremendous career. So you could say, oh, I wasn't the first pick, I wasn't the second pick. Well, it worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, went 15-1 that rookie season after he replaced Tommy Maddox in September, and then they win the Super Bowl in only his second year. And you're right, finishes with 2 and on his way to the Hall of Fame. 6 days from the draft, I'm curious. I want to take you back to your coaching career. What would you be doing this day, 6 days before round one? What is it that's going? Because people, we just assume they're in meetings. But give me an idea of what you would be doing 6 days before it's time to start making the picks.
You've basically put all your scenarios together. You've ranked your guys. You've talked at all your meetings, and you have everything in place. Now you start playing the what-if games. And I'll tell you, I was with two guys who were just fantastic with that, Rich McKay and Bill Polian. We'd go to breakfast, we'd go out, we'd get away from the building, and we'd just talk, what if this happened? What if that happens? What if these two guys are here? What if someone calls? My first draft in 1996, I'll never forget it. we're having a breakfast. It's kind of this time of day, early in the morning. And Rich McKay said, we've got to be prepared because Bobby Beathard is going to call. He's going to call at some point. He's going to offer us next year's #1 draft choice for a pick that we've got. We've got to decide if we're going to use it or not. And I'm just kind of new to this. So I'm kind of playing along with what if. And we go through different things. This guy's there. We're not going to answer his call. This guy's there. We'll think about it. This guy's there. We'll ask for something else. Well, sure enough, a week later, the draft, we pick in the first round. We're getting ready to pick in the second round. The phone rings. It's Bobby Beathard. I'm going to give you next year's #1. What do? We had talked about it. We made the decision. We traded it. The following year, 97, we end up being able to draft Warrick Dunn with that pick. So being prepared for things like that is what you're doing. Bill Polian used to love to walk on the treadmill, and then he talked through different scenarios with me. I remember 2006 draft where Edgerrin James had been a free agent and just signed with Arizona. We needed a running back. So, Bill, we've looked at all the running backs, and Bill's on the treadmill. Well, what if Lawrence Maroney, Maurice Jones-Drew, and Joseph Addai are all there? Who are we taking? And it didn't matter what I said. He was going to pick a hole in that and talk about the other guy. But we just talked through that, and then sure enough, we would have those decisions. But basically, you walk through them. That's what good general managers do.
One of the decisions made by the NFL a few weeks ago in a league meetings that didn't have a lot of new rule changes, and I think Rich McKay, the guy you mentioned earlier, now the chair of the competition committee, likes it that way. That means everything's working well if there aren't a lot of rule changes that need to be made. But the one big one was the tweak to overtime for the postseason. I can't remember where you came down on that possibility of guaranteeing a possession for each team. What do you think about what's going to be in place now for the playoffs moving forward?
Well, first of all, I don't like different rules for the playoffs and the regular season. If it's good and we need it, then it should be done all the time. I'm really more of the sudden death person anyway. I think defensively, you've got to feel like you can stop people and go out there and win the game defensively. I understand where people are. I understand that the Buffalo, Kansas City game, and everyone wanted to see Josh Allen get the ball again. But what happens when they get the ball and they take it down and score a touchdown? Okay, now Kansas City, they still have the same advantage. They won the toss. They get the score on the next possession. So I don't know that you can ever have it perfect. And I just think sometimes you got to play defense and stop them, just like Cincinnati did. Go out there, get the ball back, take it away, and don't worry about it.
I do like the fact that the Bills would have had the opportunity to choose to go for 2 and put all the eggs in one basket and avoid sudden death. Now, if you don't get the 2-point conversion, the game's over right there, but I think that's going to be some of the thought process. And I also think that some of these teams, Coach, may be thinking about kicking off more to start overtime. And because then you know exactly what you need the first time you get the ball. And if you get a stop, all you need is a field goal.
Yes, that to me is a big advantage. And people maybe haven't thought that out. But if you're guaranteed a possession, I think I do want the ball second because now I get to go for it on 4th down if I need to. I know if I stopped you, or I only need a field goal. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. It gives me some advantages. Now we both score and you get the ball first. Again, I've still got to stop you. But I think just me thinking about it, 99% of the time I would kick off.
And another thing that could happen, and we wrote about this a few weeks ago, and it actually traces back to a rare lapse by Bill Belichick. When you go out there and you want the wind, because I think that's a factor now too, you want the wind if you can get the wind. Back in 2008 or thereabout against the Jets, the Patriots accidentally said we want to kick instead of saying we want to pick which end to defend. So the Jets got the ball and they got to pick which end to defend and they won the game. So teams are thinking about doing that, and that's a real factor now too. Don't choose to kick, choose which end to defend because you want the wind, and they take the ball, you shut them down, you get a field goal, and you walk away as the winner.
Yeah. No, I think there will be a lot of those scenarios play out, and nobody's ever going to be perfectly happy. That's the one thing about overtime. There's no way to make it absolutely fair. The coin toss still is going to determine a lot of things. Eventually, it comes down at some point you got to stop them, and maybe that's what's gone. That's what's missing from the game today. People not thinking about that.
Well, and part of the problem is, especially in the postseason, number one, the rule changes in recent years have been so skewed toward the offense. And by the time you get to the final 8 teams, you got some pretty good offenses. Yeah. You got some pretty good quarterbacks. So it's harder to get that stop. And it does seem to come down to who wins that coin toss, because both offenses are good enough to drive the length of the field and get a touchdown. And I feel like whoever would have gotten the ball first in that Bills-Chiefs playoff game was going to score a touchdown the way they were scoring points at the end of the game. So they reacted to that, and I think it was overdue. I'm fine with it just for the postseason for the reason I just explained. I also think in the regular season there's a point where you got to get the game over with. In fact, I'd be fine with going back to sudden death in the regular season if they wanted to. Let's get the game over with and let's move on.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You're coaching a game. You're playing a late West Coast game. You don't want that thing going on and on and on, and you've got to fly back and get ready to play the next week.
You made a suggestion in a post that we added to PFT on Super Bowl Sunday, an open letter to the NFL about delaying the hiring process until after the Super Bowl. I think it's a great idea. I think the time has come. There are many of reasons for it, but I just feel like, for whatever reason, the broader power structure doesn't want to go there. Do you think there's any chance that that's going to take root? It should. But what do we need to do to make it happen?
I don't think it will, because people are too impatient and people are so worried about other teams getting the jump on them. It really makes sense to wait for a number of reasons. Taking your time is going to usually lead to better decisions. Waiting until after everybody is through will eliminate the Josh McDaniels situation where you're trying to hurry and get something done and then the parties change their mind. It'll also eliminate the Eric Bieniemy situation where I do 5 interviews in a day and a half or 2 days, and then people pick that apart. Well, he wasn't prepared. He wasn't as thorough as this person who had 2 weeks to prepare for one interview. And I think it goes better. I go back to my own experience. We were in the playoffs 3 times in Minnesota, and I did some interviews, didn't get the jobs. The one time we didn't make the playoffs, I had probably a 6-week process with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had an interview on the West Coast at the East-West game. I had another interview a week later at the Senior Bowl. I had another interview a week after that in Tampa. And we got to know each other very well. And I think the Bucs knew who they were getting by the time that process ended. There's no way you can do that if you're trying to do that all between playoff appearances and in a week-long session where you're interviewing 5, 6, 8 people in 2 or 3 days.
And it really does distract you from what your primary focus should be in your current job, doing everything you can to get ready to win the next game. And I saw one of the candidates this year say it's not a distraction. Of course it's a distraction, because every minute you spend preparing and submitting to that interview is a minute you could spend watching film, strategizing, doing something to try to help your team win the next game.
I talked to Leslie Frazier quite a bit during the process, and they were getting ready to play. He's the defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. They're getting ready to play the Kansas City Chiefs. So they've got a lot on the table trying to stop the Chiefs. And now all of a sudden he gets a call from the New York Giants. We've got to talk to you. We've got to interview you tomorrow. He gets a call from the Chicago Bears. Hey, our only window is this Friday. So he is going back and forth between Chicago and New York Giants and watching tape of the Chiefs and practicing. I thought to myself, if I was a Buffalo Bills fan, I would be appalled right now. I would be. My defensive coordinator, who I'm counting on to get us to the Super Bowl, and he's got all this going on, and it's not his fault, because he's saying, if I don't take these interviews, what do? I'm not going to get another chance. And it's totally unfair, and it hurts the teams and the coaches that are in the playoffs.
Coach Frazier, former head coach of the Viking, one of the candidates in New York. The job went to his colleague in Buffalo, Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator with the Bills. Coach Frazier had some intriguing comments last week in an item that was produced and prepared and presented by NBC News. You were part of that. Hugh Jackson was as well. Leslie Frazier's comment really struck me, though, as significant. He said that nothing is going to change when it comes to improved hiring practices of black head coaches until there's a massive change of heart by the owners. And I think he's absolutely right. But I have absolutely no idea as to how that is ever going to happen. Given the structure of the league, you're talking about very rich, very powerful people who are very accustomed to getting what they want, and they don't want anyone telling them to do anything other than they want to do. How does that massive change of heart that Leslie Frazier suggested occur, Coach?
I think it happens when people realize that diversity and taking your time and looking for and searching for candidates helps you win. And everybody tells me whenever you bring this subject up, well, everybody's trying to win. Everybody's trying to win. The best people are always going to get hired. And that is true. Everybody is trying to win, but some people don't know how to win, and they don't know what it takes. I go back to 1946, and the NFL is all white at that time. Players, coaches, everything. Paul Brown comes in to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns join the NFL, and he says, wait a minute, aren't we trying to win here? Said, I had better players at Massillon High School, and I had better players at Ohio State. I'm going to sign some of those guys if we're trying to win. And all of a sudden, he has Marion Motley and Bill Willis and these black players who played for him in college and in the service ball. And they win 5 championships. Well, everybody was trying to win before, but they didn't maybe necessarily know and have all the resources. So I think that's what it's going to have to take, that these owners are going to have to see, it's not necessarily just doing the right thing for the right reasons. It's going to help me.
I have a challenge for you as it relates to one of the player issues currently in the NFL. It popped up this week. You're the head coach of the 49ers right now. Somehow your relationship with Deebo Samuel has gotten to the point where he's asked to be traded. You can't trade Deebo Samuel. He's clearly one of the best players on the team. How do you get him to rescind that request and change his mind? Now, look, you may have most likely never gotten the relationship to the point where he asked to be traded, but assume you find yourself in this mess where he wants out. What do you do to try to talk him out of it and stay with the 49ers?
You do. You just sit down and you talk, hey, what's on your mind? What's the problem? Let's see if we can get this fixed. And this is nothing new, Mike. My rookie year, 1977, and you'll remember it well, Mel Blount, who was the defensive player of the year before, I'll never play for the Steelers again. I'm done. I'm not playing. Coach, no. Just kind of let it ride. Sit down. What's your problem? The problem was money. And so they got that squared away, and Mel played 7 or 8 more years. But that happens a lot. Something will happen, something will trigger, and usually you can fix it with just a little communication. So that's what I'd recommend. Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, sit down with Deebo. What's going on? Tell us what the issue is.
It really is different now, though, between free agency and this dynamic we've seen where guys want out and they get what they want. They want a specific team to play for, and they get what they want. And I think other players see that, and they say, I want that too. Davante Adams wanted to play for the Raiders. He got to play for the Raiders. Tyreek Hill wanted to play for the Dolphins. He got to play for the Dolphins. That's going to affect other guys. And some of these teams that may want to take an older school approach, they're stuck because players have tangible examples they can point to and say, that guy got what he wanted, that guy got what he wanted, I want what I want too.
No, that's true, but that's always been there. And as a head coach, as an organization, you have to say, is putting our foot down and saying, hey, it's not going to happen. Is that beneficial to us? Or do we take the revenue that we can get for that player and use it? Is that what's going to be better for us? But there will be instances where teams say, I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen.
Well, that may be what the 49ers are going to do with Deebo Samuel. We shall see. Coach, safe travels this weekend. Thanks so much for some of your time. All the best to you and the family. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Always great to be with you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights From NBC Sports.